This was last fall, around late October. I was driving through a mountain highway in Oregon during a solo road trip. My plan was to hit a few small towns and parks before winter really kicked in. I was in my red Jeep Wrangler, something I always trusted on rough terrain. The drive was quiet, and the deeper I got into the forest, the less traffic I saw. By late afternoon, I hadn't passed another car for nearly an hour. I remember seeing clouds piling up on the horizon, dark, thick, moving fast. I figured I'd stop soon and wait the storm out. I was about 10 miles from the nearest marked campground when my dashboard started flashing. Check engine, battery light, oil pressure, all at once. I pulled off onto a dirt clearing by the tree line, just as the Jeep stalled. No signal, just the sound of wind and the forest settling around me. I tried starting it again. Nothing. I checked the hood, but I'm no mechanic. The battery looked fine, cables tight, no smoke, no smell, nothing obvious. I told myself I'd sleep in the car for the night, then hike out in the morning if I needed to. The storm hit about an hour later. Sheets of rain, thunder shaking the windshield, trees bending with the wind. It felt like the whole forest was breathing around me. At first I was fine, just uncomfortable. Then I started seeing movement in the side mirror. Not headlights, not animals, but shadows, shifting just beyond the tree line. I turned off the interior lights and stared out through the fogged-up windows. For a while, there was nothing. Just rain hitting the roof. Then I saw it. A figure standing near the woods, still, facing the Jeep, arms at its sides, not moving. I blinked. It was gone. Just trees. I told myself it was my mind playing tricks, or maybe a tree that looked weird in the lightning. But a few minutes later, I heard something. Not from the woods, but from the back of the Jeep. A soft tapping on the rear window. I froze. My phone had no service. My keys were in the ignition, but the engine was dead. I didn't move, just listened. Then it tapped again. It wasn't rain. It was rhythmic, like knuckles. I turned around slowly, looking through the foggy glass. Nothing was there. But when lightning flashed, I swear I saw a face, pressed against the window. Pale, sunken, almost melted looking, eyes wide open, mouth closed. The kind of face you don't forget. I lunged into the front seat, locked the doors, and tried the ignition again. Still dead. For the next hour, nothing happened. No more tapping. No more faces. Just the storm. I started convincing myself I imagined it, until I looked up at the windshield and saw 5 long smears down the glass, like someone dragged their fingers from the roof to the hood. I stayed frozen, clutching my flashlight, heart pounding. Then I heard it again. Footsteps outside. Slow, wet, squishing against the mud. They circled the Jeep. Once, twice. No knocking this time. Just the sound of someone dragging their boots through the waterlogged grass. I turned off my flashlight and sat in the dark. I don't know how long it went on, but eventually it stopped. The next thing I remember is waking up, just like that. It was morning. The rain had stopped. The forest was dead quiet. But something was wrong with the Jeep. On the passenger side door, scratches. Deep, thin, parallel marks running across the panel. They weren't there before. I checked around the car. No footprints, no tire tracks. No signs anyone had been there. But the ground was soaked. If someone, or something, had come close, it would have left something behind. I packed my bag, locked the Jeep, and hiked until I finally got cell service and called for help. They towed the Jeep that afternoon. Mechanics said the electrical system was fried. Fuse box looked like it had been hit with a power surge. He couldn't explain it. I didn't tell him what I saw. I didn't tell anyone for weeks. I still don't understand it. I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And I know something touched the Jeep that night. I've driven through a lot of places since, but never back there. Last summer, I spent 4 nights alone in a cabin deep in the Oregon woods. No cell service, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just trees and silence. It was supposed to be a reset. My brother dropped me off, said he'd be back by day 5. I waved him off like it was nothing, but a storm was already building in the distance, thick clouds stacking like bruises over the tree line. The cabin was small but sturdy. 1 bedroom, no power, but stocked with lanterns, canned food, a wood stove, and a well out back. The first night it rained hard, thunder shaking the walls every hour. I fell asleep to the sound of water hitting the roof like nails, until sometime past 3 a.m. when I woke up to what I thought were footsteps outside. Not walking, pacing, slow and steady. I sat up and listened, but the wind covered everything. I told myself it was branches or water dripping off the roof. I slept light after that. The next day I stuck close to the cabin. The trails were flooded anyway, and the sky hadn't cleared. By night 2, the storm got worse. Trees groaned in the wind. Flashes of lightning lit up the woods every few minutes. I had just put out the lantern when I heard it again. Steps outside, same pattern as the night before, circling the cabin, stopping by the door. I held still in the dark, waiting, rain pounding the roof, thunder shaking the windows. No knock, no voice, just silence. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to look out the small side window, but saw nothing. The next morning I opened the door and stopped cold. Someone had left something, right in the mud. A nail, perfectly upright, pressed into the ground. No hammer marks, no boot prints. Just that, standing there like a warning. I didn't touch it, didn't even step past it. I went back inside and locked the door. It was too far to walk to the road, especially with the trails washed out. I kept glancing out the window all day, but saw nothing. Just trees bending in the wind. That night I didn't light the lantern. I just sat in the dark, holding the axe I found in the cabin. Thunder rattled the cabin, and then I heard something different. Dragging. Something heavy sliding through wet leaves, getting closer. I held my breath. Footsteps again, but slower now. Like whoever it was could hear my heart pounding. They stopped right outside the wall behind my bed. I waited, eyes wide, the wind screaming against the roof. And then a knock. But what really sent a shiver up my spine was hearing a voice, barely louder than the rain, say my name.
Josh.
Then again.
Josh.
I didn't move, didn't speak. I just sat there in the dark until the sun rose. When I finally stepped outside, I saw 3 more nails, this time in a triangle, pressed into the soaked dirt just outside the door. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. My brother wasn't due for another full day. I stayed in the cabin with the axe on my lap. Didn't light the lantern. Didn't move much. Every creak in the wood felt like a countdown. And then, right after midnight, someone knocked again. On the back wall, not the door. Just knuckles on old wood. Then again, louder this time. Followed by a voice, low and calm, from just outside. This time saying something different.
Leave.
And then, silence. That night was the longest night of my life. I was terrified. And even if I wanted to leave, I wasn't able to. The storm was getting worse by the hour, and the closest cabin to this one was miles away. I had no choice but to stand my ground. Fortunately, I didn't hear anything anymore. But with the axe still in my hands, I was ready to fight that night, with whoever or whatever was outside. By sunrise, my brother showed up like nothing was wrong. I didn't say much, just grabbed my bag and climbed into the truck. As we drove off, I looked back at the cabin one last time, and promised to myself that I will never go back to that cabin. At least not alone. This was in 2022. I had decided to go camping alone. I'd been feeling overwhelmed from work and needed a break from everything, so I drove up to a remote forest preserve in Washington. I picked a location that was completely off-grid, not near any campsites or trails. I figured the more isolated, the better, for what I was looking for. Just a few days of peace and quiet out in nature, with no one else around. I got there in the afternoon, parked at the end of a narrow dirt road, then hiked about 2 miles into the woods. I set up my tent near a ridge overlooking a small stream. It was a beautiful spot, surrounded by thick trees and mossy rocks. Everything smelled like rain and pine. I set up camp, cooked a small dinner on my portable stove, and just relaxed as the sky slowly darkened above the forest around me. By sunset, I noticed the clouds rolling in. They were heavy and dark and moving fast. I checked the forecast again. No signal, but the last update said possible light rain around midnight. It looked worse than that to me though, so I reinforced the tent stakes and pulled my gear inside, just in case. Then I laid down on my sleeping pad and read for a bit, listening to the wind begin to rise in the trees above me. It was probably around 10 p.m. when the storm really hit. Not just a drizzle, but a full-on thunderstorm, the kind that shakes the ground and makes you feel small. The wind started ripping at the tent walls, and lightning lit up the inside every few seconds. I was nervous, but mostly just in awe of how powerful it was, until I heard it. Twigs snapping, maybe 15 or 20 feet away near the back of the tent. At first, I thought it was just a branch falling or something from the wind. But then there were more steps, slow, deliberate, heavy crunches on the wet forest floor. Someone was walking around my tent. I froze. My heart was pounding. I turned off my headlamp and just listened. It was pitch black inside. Flashes of lightning would light up the tent for a second, then vanish. Just thunder, rain, and steps outside. I didn't say anything. I just stayed completely still and tried to control my breathing. The steps circled the tent, then stopped, directly behind where my head was resting. And then, I swear, I heard someone whisper, right through the fabric.
You shouldn't be out here.
I sat up fast, completely panicked, unzipped my bag and grabbed the knife I kept in my pack. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Nothing. No footsteps running away, no voice back, just the wind and thunder and rain. I stayed like that for maybe an hour, knife in hand, just sitting upright in the tent with my ears straining for another sound. But nothing else happened. Eventually, I laid back down, but didn't sleep. I couldn't. The adrenaline kept me wide awake all night. Every creak outside felt like someone crouching closer. By morning, the storm had passed, but everything was soaked and muddy. I stepped out of the tent, finally ready to convince myself it was just the storm messing with my head, maybe a falling branch, and my imagination. But right behind my tent, pressed into the mud, was a footprint. Bare, no shoe, just a large, muddy, barefoot print pointing toward the tent, and no other prints around it. Not even one. None leading up. None walking away. Just that single print. I packed everything as fast as I could. I didn't even eat. Just shoved everything into my bag and hiked out through the fog with my knife still in my hand. The forest was quiet again, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like it was watching. I didn't tell anyone for a while because I didn't even know how to explain it. I still really don't. I made it back to my car and drove straight home. I kept thinking maybe someone had been living out there. Maybe just watching hikers pass through. Maybe it was all in my head. But I can't shake the feeling that it wasn't a person at all. And whatever it was, it knew I was alone. It knew the storm would cover its steps, and it wanted me to hear it whisper that night. I'll never camp alone again.